How you doing? How you doing?
Yoo-hoo! Hey, how you doing? Joe Walsh, 88.5 FM, Saturday again. Ever have voices in your head? I do sometimes. One voice said, "Oh my God, it's September 26th." Another voice said, "So what?" And the first voice said, "Well, yeah, you're right." So I'm glad we got that resolved, and I just want to say hi to everybody, plus or minus 2 hours of music. I think it's going to be fun this week. I talked to the drummer of the James Gang, Jimmy Foxx. We had a nice visit. We'll be doing that a little later in the show. Who let the dogs out? 88.5 FM, Joe Walsh here. I'm going through the Just Ask Joe questions for this week, and I came across this. Deborah Hanna from Daphne, Alabama. Hey, Joe, just asking for a shout-out to those of us who are in South Alabama and just survived Hurricane Sally. Just got the power back on after 3 days, so the show's going to be a nice relief. Thank you, Deborah. Hey, Deborah, how you doing? And everybody in the South who got sallied, I picked a song for you. Here it is. Hope it helps. Joe Walsh here. Gavin DeGraw started off the segment with Best I Ever Had. Then a song, Could You Be Mine by Billy Rafool. He's Canadian. That's about all I know about him, except he's really great. I haven't been this excited about some guy I found on the internet in a long time. He's really great, but it's 4 reallys, okay? And not everybody gets 4 reallys from me, but he's really, 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 really great. And then we heard Here I Am by Jay Boog, B-O-O-G. And then we heard It's Okay If You Forget Me by Astrid S. All right, so Ross wrote in with a question about a song on the first James Gang album, which I haven't heard in 50 years. So I had to call up the drummer of the James Gang, Jimmy Foxx. So this is a Ask Joe and Jimmy coming up. We'll be back right after this.
This question is from Ross Blaufarb from Vallejo, California. Hi, Joe. Your album is one of my favorite albums. It still holds surprises, and the songs are fabulous. The first James Gang LP. Fred has always intrigued me, both the music and the story it tells. I feel like I know it so well, but it's still a mystery. I love that. And the pocket is so hypnotic. 1. What prompted the idea for it? 2. What does it mean? Is the narrator in prison? Who's Fred? And 3. How did the jazzy middle 6/8 jam come about? I love your fuzzed out rhythm guitar. Is that a Les Paul? Thank you very much from a lifelong fan, Ross.
That was a complete original song, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. My recollection of it, and I have to admit it's a little vague, you had that song pretty complete before we heard it. Mm-hmm. It was well situated in your mind. You knew the verses. You knew the essence of the song.
Yeah, I think so.
And we were immediately interested in it, and like we did with everything, we jumped on it. Yeah. Okay, what can we do with this? Let's go with this. Well, we had a verse and that little chorus, which is, that little 4-bar chorus.
Yeah.
And then a second verse and another 4-bar chorus. And that's, that's where we stopped. That's where we went. At that moment, I was taking a class, a music class, and I believe it might have been appreciation, but it also might have been something they called ear training. Okay?
Yeah.
So, we'd listen to a lot of music, and the teacher, who was a sweet lady, would say things like, okay, tell me the changes you just heard. Is it 1-4-5? Is it 1-6 minor? Is it, is there a diminished chord in there? And she wanted us to learn how to tell that by ear rather than reading it off a page.
Mm-hmm.
So we were listening to some unusual things, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned Béla Bartók, who was a semi-famous Hungarian composer. He's actually more popular today than he was then.
Yeah.
And she had a piece of music of his that she wanted us to listen to. And that's the immediate section just before it goes into the 3 thing, the jazz thing that we just heard, that da 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 da. You know, and I had it in my head because, boy, I heard that and I went, that's cool.
Yep.
In those days, I couldn't find the record. Then it was a Hungarian release. It was never released in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hear it till a couple of years later when finally I was collecting my license plates by then, and I made a deal with a kid in Hungary. He was sending me license plates, and I was sending him music. And at a certain point, I thought, wait a minute, Bartók is Hungarian. This kid could send me some Bartók. And I said, could you find me the Romanian dances? And a couple of weeks later comes a package with the Romanian dances on a record. And I put it on, and Joe, I doubt I ever even told you this. I was absolutely horrified when I heard the tempo. We were playing it. I put the record on. It's never stopped to think. It was called a dance, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never occurred to me. When I heard it, it was like, my God, we didn't do it any justice at all. But actually we did. Because if nothing else, we turned a few ears onto a real giant of a composer who didn't break in the States until a little later. That's where that section came from. And then we turned to that 3/4 jazzy thing.
Yeah.
And boy, what's the famous response? From our butts, Dick? I don't know where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember, that's triple track guitar.
Yes. Yes, harmonies are gorgeous.
That's the Les Paul, and I remember not knowing what the third part was. Where do I go with this? And so I just went anywhere, and there's some weird chords in that.
Oh, yeah. No question.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. There's a famous Crosby story. Crosby has become known for singing the middle part.
Yeah.
Always, He's the guy who came up with the third part.
Yeah.
And he did it in the Byrds, and he did it in CSN, and he's done it everywhere, and he's the reason that both of those bands have the character that they have about their sound is Crosby's unique take on that middle voice.
Yeah.
That's the one that the average person doesn't hear. And that's why when you came to it, you went,
Yeah.
Do I put this above it? Do I put it below it? Or do I put it in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you, frankly, fortunately, your response was brilliant. It's a beautiful 3-part.
Followed by you playing, is that 2 bars of 5 or one bar of 10?
That was 2 bars of 5.
Okay.
That was absolutely a nod to Joe Morello. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else from the first James Gang album that comes to your mind? Well, Funk 48.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you what else. That brings up another interesting thing. We were going to talk about how Fred got his name.
Fred, yeah. I think I had just seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And so this song, as I remember, was about somebody who was heavily sedated in a mental hospital.
Yes.
Or something.
Well, that's what I took from it. That's exactly what I took from it. And you're right. I'd have to check the dates on Cuckoo's Nest, but it fits. Yeah. It exactly fits. It's that kind of thought was in the song. There's a line about through the bars. Yeah. Through the bars, I might as well, or something. So this is a person who is, being held either for his own good or for security reasons. Somehow he's incarcerated somewhere, whether it's in an asylum or whether it's in a prison or whatever it is.
Yeah. It came up, what's his name?
I figure Simzik. I blame Bill for anything I can't remember, that I can't attribute to you and me. I immediately blame Bill.
This next question is from Dan Hill from Carbondale, Illinois. Hi, Joe. How you doing? Thanks for being accessible to us, Joe, and thanks for selecting my questions. In Midnight Visitor, is it, I couldn't help but thinking they would follow him a while, referring to the lingering images of sunlight and wheat fields? Or is it, they would follow in a while, referring to pursuers? I have to know. It completely changes the takeaway for me. I think it's a lovely tune, and the festive break in the middle conjures a montage of medieval joy. I couldn't help but thinking Tolkien would have approved. And are my ears playing tricks on me, or does Rocky Mountain Way start getting louder towards the end of a talkbox segment? I feel a punch-up in volume is happening there. I know you must have heard this 1,000 times, but dang, Joe, that's a great song. And your explanation of the talkbox was excellent. Peace and good tidings, Mr. Walsh. Dan Hill.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Good question. In Midnight Visitor, you're all around it. You're all around it, but the word you're looking for is day, D-A-Y. Midnight Visitor, a servant of the day, traveled miles on horseback to scout his master's way. And then when he's leaving, a twinkle in his eye and a wheat field in his smile, I couldn't help but thinking day would follow in a while. That's sunrise, okay? There you go. And in Rocky Mountain Way, you are right. There are two Les Paul electric guitars playing rhythm in Rocky Mountain Way. And after the talkbox solo, we added a third Les Paul. So there's three rhythm guitar players, which are all me. So the apparent volume comes up. Hope I answered your questions. They were good ones. Thanks.
Just ask Joe.
This next question is from Sam Stebbins from upstate New York. Hey, Joe, are you no longer taking questions from fans? Thanks.
Hey, Sam, how you doing? Am I no longer taking questions from fans? The answer is no, which is I am taking questions from fans. So, am I no longer taking questions from fans? No. That's confusing, isn't it? Okay, I missed last week, I think, because I had too much music. So, I hope I answered your question. Now that you know that, ask me a question.
Just ask Joe.
This next question is from Johnny Leonidakis from Northridge, California. Hi, Joe. Big fan and fret grinder here. If you could only play one electric guitar and one acoustic guitar for the rest of your life, what would it be? For example, a 1958 Les Paul electric, early 70s Martin D28 acoustic, or something else. And I'd love to know the reasons why, too. An F major 7 to C major 7 to you, Johnny Octane.
Hey, Johnny, how you doing? Good question. If I could only play one guitar the rest of my life, I'd have to say a Fender Telecaster. Leo Fender didn't even play guitar. He just had a machine shop and a wood shop in his garage. He had a bunch of friends that played guitar, and after numerous attempts, all his buddies were nodding yes, and that was the birth of the Fender Telecaster. Nobody knows the real year for sure, but it's about 1953 is when the Fender Telecaster was born. Nobody's ever topped it. In all these years and all this technology, I always go back to a Fender Telecaster when I'm playing at home by myself. So I'm going to stick by that. Mid-60s. That's the guitar on Funk 49. And I'm going to go with you on the Martin. A D28 works for me, records great. The Triple O Martins are really nice, but the D28 is what you hear on Life of Illusion. So I hope I answered your question. It was a really good one. And here's a F major 7 and a C major 7 to you, buddy. Joe Walsh here. That was Shots by Imagine Dragons. Are they still around? The band, not the Dragons. I don't know. She Still Thinks I Care by George Jones. To me, the finest country singer ever. And a better man than I. I can't imagine what it would be like to be married to Tammy Wynette. And I'll just leave that right there. Superbike coming up by Jay Som. Good song. We'll go out with Jimmy Cliff. I want to thank my friend Jimmy Foxx, drummer of the James Gang, for visiting with us today. He's great. Boy, I listened to that old James Gang stuff, and he's really good. I had no idea he was that good when I was on stage standing next to him because we played so loud, we couldn't hear anything, you know? Okay, we're not out of the woods yet. Keep your chins up and your heads down. Wear your mask, wash your hands, stay at least 6 feet from everything, and have a good rest of the weekend. I'm going to watch some football tomorrow and try and figure out how those cardboard people can make so much noise. Okay? Joe Walsh saying adios till next week. Thanks a lot. 88.5 FM.